Welcome to Beyond Names. I'm Dr. Habib. This is a space for spiritual seekers and soulful misfits, for the curious and the committed, for those grounded in a tradition, and for those who are not sure what they believe. Whether you call the divine God, Yahweh, Allah, Elohim, Brahman, Great Spirit, higher power, or you're still searching for language that fits, you are welcome here. Together, we'll explore the intersection of daily life and spirituality, the wisdom of many traditions, and the ways we return to our true selves, to our source, to the light that each of us carry within. I'm so glad you're here. Let's begin with introduction of our conversation partner for this episode, Dr. Alane Daugherty. Dr. Alane Daugherty is a writer, speaker, and professor. Her work focuses on teaching people how to transform chaotic and limiting emotional patterns to ones that are self-affirming, life-enhancing, and truly transformative. She is the author of Unstressed: How Somatic Awareness Can Transform Your Body's Stress Response and Build Emotional Resilience. From Mindfulness to Heartfulness: A Journey of Transformation Through the Science of Embodiment. And The Power Within: From Neuroscience to Transformation. She's also the author of several articles published in Psychology Today. She is the director of the Mind and Heart Lab at Cal Poly Pomona. Dr. Lane is also the co-creator of the Inner Calm smartphone app. And Dr. Elaine's passion is, if I may synthesize in this way, the intersection of neuroscience, emotional literacy, and the mind, body, heart, soul, spirit dynamic. So, to learn more about Dr. Alane and her work, please visit mindandheartlab.com. Dr. Alane, welcome. Thank you for being here.
It's very nice to be with you. Be always
And
touch
just for
my
all,
heart.
um, I'll fess right up. I'm a Dr. Elaine fan. Dr. Elaine was on my dissertation committee. I have used her book From Mindfulness to Heartfulness quite a lot. And I really love the way that you speak about the mind and the body and bring those together with the heart and the soul. So again, thank you so much for being here. So if you would you tell us a little bit about your spiritual story as a way of letting us get to know you and who you are and what your journey has been and what's important to you?
Uh, so I can't really separate my spiritual story from also the story that brought me into somatic practice and somatic awareness. Um, these two things were going on simultaneously for me in my life. Is that I at a certain point in my life really struggled with my emotional mental health,
Mm,
anxiety. I had extreme anxiety, bad anxiety disorders. At one point I was really afraid I would take my own life. I didn't want to, but I was afraid. When you struggle with anxiety as bad as I did, you learn not to trust yourself. And I was just afraid that I would just have an impulse to throw myself off a bridge. I don't know why bridges were the worst for me, um, but and it feels, I want to say the word funny. It's not really funny, but it kind of feels funny to talk about it now because it's just not a part of my life anymore. And when I work
mm,
with people a lot, I hear often, I know I'll get over it, but or I know I'll never get over it, but I just want to learn to live with it. And I don't believe that. I believe that you really can move beyond anxiety and stress disorders. And so that was going on in my life in a huge way, and I wanted to find a way to heal. And so
Mhm.
I threw my whole life into a journey of healing. And at that time, I was also, so it didn't directly lead me to spirituality, but then at the same time, I was kind of simultaneously searching for spirituality
Mhm.
because when I grew up, I was, I was raised in a very specific, pretty conservative Catholic tradition. And I got to a point where it didn't work for me and the dogma didn't work for me in my life anymore. And so just kind of left any kind of religion because at that time I thought, spirituality had to be religion and the religion wasn't working for me anymore. So was kind of like that for a while, but then when I started really trying to find ways to emotionally heal, I was also trying to find my way back to spirituality. And I remember, what do you do? This, what do you do when you need an answer? I went to the internet, yeah. And so I just started looking at different, first of all, I started looking at different spiritual or religious traditions that might work a little bit better for me. And then I kind of, thank goodness, went down the rabbit hole of all of that. And there was just a mention on that website called the Thinking Person's Guide to God. Yeah, I thought that was such a great title. And it's just a really kind of short book, but it completely changed my life because just because of the steps that it kind of, this first steps on the path that it offered me. And those steps on the path that it offered me, it was written by an Episcopal priest. And, but one of the things he said was that even though he was an Episcopal priest, one of the most spiritual services he had ever been at was at a friend's Quaker meeting. And,
Mhm.
so again, I'm like going to the internet, I didn't even know what the Friends tradition was all about. And found out that there was a Friends meeting house about a block away from where I lived. And so I went to that service, and that the Friends meeting is, there's not a leader, and everybody kind of sits in the middle, and it's basically a meditation session unless somebody really feels moved by the spirit, but you really need to feel moved by the spirit to stand up and speak. And so, I had no idea what to expect, and I went in to this service, and this 80-year-old woman stood up and started talking about God as a female. And I just, just started bawling. I thought, okay, I'm home. But that started a meditation practice for me. And at the same week, during the same week, I decided that I was going to, because I just didn't, this was at the very beginning of my journey. I had no idea where I was going. I was just following whatever showed up. And there was a Zen group that met in town, and one of my friends was going, and she told me about it. I thought, oh, that sounds really interesting. So I went to the Zen group, and it's funny because it was in the Zen group actually rented out the Quaker meeting house. It was in the same building. And one of the gentlemen that ran, the man that ran the Zen group was also really a mainstay in the Quaker meeting.
Mm.
And his whole life was changed through meditation practices and things like that. So he just offered this Zen group, and so I just threw myself into both. So I go to this Zen group on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I go to the Quaker meeting on Sunday, and it was in the same place. I just really, my life is before and after just really soaking into the meditation practice there. So the Zen group really got me deep into my practice. But it lacked, I needed some real strong spirituality into it with it. And then the Quaker meeting really kind of helped me recognize that for me, it was all about a spiritual practice. It wasn't, it wasn't just an awareness practice. It was a real spiritual practice. And so then I just went all kinds of places from there. Um, and also at the time, I was still working on really healing all the emotional, but that stuff just started to heal itself. And
Mm,
and at the time, also I felt like I had gone through this real journey and I'd really figured out, not figured out how to heal, but for me, gone on a process that was really effective in emotional healing. And at the time, also, for a long time, I had wanted to go back to school because I was on, I got my master's degree in exercise science. So my my life was really about what physical health and wellness was. And
mhm,
but inside, I was falling apart. And
mm,
and that was one of the reasons I felt like I couldn't tell anybody how much I was struggling emotionally, mentally, because on the outside I was like this epitome of health and I was teaching health and fitness all day long. And so when I started going into that spiritual journey, it was it was an all consuming. It wasn't just spiritual, it was emotional, it was mental, it was just this whole process of what it looked like to heal. But spirituality was at the center of all of that. and
mm,
and then at that time, it was just a time and place where conversions of different disciplines were coming together. And that was when, it just really exploded around the neuroscience, around spirituality. And all of a sudden it was like I was understanding all of this stuff, because I was always so passionate about the body and what the body did. But then when I could relate it to my spirituality, so that's when I went back to school and got my PhD all focused in, in what it looked, mind body healing looks like, and in relationship to spirituality and contemplative practice. And so it all kind of
yeah,
came together, but it was a real personal experience for me before it was an academic experience, for sure.
mm,
So, and I think that's really important to say, especially when I'm teaching, because I want my students to know it's a lived experience for me, even more than it's an academic knowledge experience. That came in, in major degrees later, but it was really a personal experience of healing. But yeah, just for me, I can't separate the emotional healing from the spirituality. I can't separate it from how to access that in the body. um, for me, it's one whole kind of condensed ball of integration of all of this stuff. So
I love to hear that you can't separate it and you use the word integration. And just to give you a background, and I'm sure the listeners have heard me say this before, but part of my desire in having this podcast is that I feel like collectively we're in need of a spiritual awakening. And for me, the centrality of heartfulness is part of that awakening, that that we can't really truly awaken our consciousness if we're not in integration of heart, mind, body, and soul. So if we're leaving out um, our spiritual heart or our soul, whichever language you use in your tradition, then we're missing tremendously. And in so many times, whether it's the news or whether it's from the pulpit or from the mimbar, I hear stuff that is the epitome of narrowness and in the absolute opposite of heartfulness. And it's like I feel like my heart breaks a little bit every time I hear that, and I just am challenged by being um of remaining heartful in myself in the face of it, in the face of a lack of heartfulness in others. And yet And yet this is so much what I feel like is part of what is ours to do today, is to invite others to awaken to um, deeper level of awareness. It is not simply about mind knowing. It's not simply about outer awareness, but is an inner awareness that includes heartfulness and the soul and the spirit. So,
Yeah, it is a whole integrated way of being, and what I love about it is we can even see that in the body. We can see that when we're integrated, we're more available, we're more connected, and whether it's connected to other people or connected to the divine or whatever kind of sacred reality somebody believes in or subscribes to or lives or experiences, that is facilitated when it's an experience more than a cognitive belief. Or at least that's what I believe. And so I think that really talking about it and looking at it that way, we can actually facilitate ways of being in the world that make us more receptive to that experience, but also make us more receptive to developing the capacity even more. And it isn't, from my perspective, it's not about a cognitive belief system. It's not about subscribing to a specific dogma where we just, do this and this and this, and it's all kind of an external focus, right? It's really a lived experience. And how do we cultivate that lived experience through both our spirituality and through our daily practices and through the way we love each other? And yeah,
mhm.
so for me it's just all connected in that way. And me personally, way less about a dogma or a belief system than just a way of being in the world.
Yeah. So how do you most access your sense of connection to the sacred, and how do you most support yourself in this integration of mind, body, heart, soul?
Oh boy, that's a hard question to answer, and the only reason why it's a hard question to answer is I don't for me, it's just a total embodied experience. And I can
Mhm.
tell in my own whole mind body complex. When I say the word body, I'm not talking about the thing that walks us around from our shoulders to our toes. I'm talking about this whole human system that we live in. And
Mhm.
um, for me, I can just feel it. I mean, I can
Yeah.
feel when I'm in the spaces where I'm really connected to the sacred, and I can feel things that lead me to that and things that lead me away from that. And I definitely need practices. I need, meditation. I need certain types of practices that get me into that space, and
Mhm.
certain intentionalities of really being connected to other people, really feeling that sense of connectedness, but also that sense of loving support, that sense of compassion. For me, those are all lived experiences. And
Mhm.
it's so, I mean, it's easy to explain to me, for me to explain kind of that that's a lived experience, but I'm not sure how to share that with other people that don't know that don't have that
Yeah.
experience, if that makes
Yeah.
any sense.
Mhm.
But I think for me, the like I said, there's certain practices. It's like, it when you feel it. And so
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
inching my way into certain practices where I really feel that divine. I really feel that shift. I really feel that sacred presence. I feel I feel the sacred presence when I'm connecting with somebody else, when I'm sitting with somebody else, when I'm hearing their story. To me, it's not a head practice. In fact, the more it becomes a head practice, the more I know I'm shifting out of it. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
all of that is just such an embodied way for me to be in the world. And and it's kind of both, and because it's such an embodied way of being in the world, sometimes it's hard to articulate.
Yeah.
you
Yes.
know
Sometimes it is hard to articulate.
yeah,
As you were saying, oh, that's a hard question, I was like, how would I answer that question? I'm trying to like simultaneously listen to you and then ask myself, well, what is that? Would I say the same thing that she's saying? Would I say that I can just feel it? And and it's interesting. I think that there are aspects, for example, there are times where, like I think in Christianity, the term felt presence is used. Um, but there's times where or in some traditions, it might be called like a insight, like a divine insight or a revelation or an experience of felt presence or like when I have those moments, like say I say something or I'm in a teaching moment or a healing session and you just feel that it's not you, that the you is not there, that it is
right,
something that is way beyond you. Like
right,
those are the experiences that you feel in the body because I kind of describe them as like those tingly moments or, I don't know that my hair is standing up on end, but there is this something that is happening in both the body and not not the physical by in body.
right.
In that case, I was talking about the flesh and bone body, but something happened there, but then also happened beyond that. But then in other when I have had for example, an experience when I was doing a 40-day retreat. And so obviously there is a lot of devoted spiritual practice morning and night. And I had this experience of awareness of the physical body, but then awareness of what I would call the energetic body, and then awareness of like the borders softening, as if as if this wasn't actually a border, sort of like as if it was softer than it appears, and then as what beyond that is the energetic body, and as if that was softer than it appears, and was like these increasing layers of subtlety, for lack of, like you said, it's hard to put words to, right?
Yeah, it's a palpable, for me, it's a palpable experience. And so the way I make myself more spiritually available is to do those things that invite or make me more receptive to being in a state to kind of accept those palpable experiences. Because you can't do that when you're stressed out, when you're anxious, when you're worried, when you're all tight. It just doesn't allow
Yeah.
you as much to go there. Not that you can't, but it's just not. But yeah, like you were saying, because it's so funny because I was gonna, right at the end of what I was saying before you went into that, I was just gonna say it feels like when you really get into those spaces that the there is no division, there is no kind of where I end, right? The body feels
Oh,
like it's just going on and really connecting to all those places around, and not that that happens every moment of every day, but that certainly is.
no.
Yeah, it certainly can be a place of those really deep, deep spaces where it just
Yeah.
begins to, yeah, just the borders begin to disappear.
Yeah.
Um, and I like, there's a man called, his name is Reggie Ray, who does a lot of Buddhist somatic tradition of Buddhism, and very, very, very deep. And he has a couple books called Somatic Descents, and I can't remember the name of the other one that I just ate up, but he even talks about that, how you get so much into your because soma is like your body lived from the inside out. And
Mm,
so when you do somatic practices, you're actually training your system to be able to live from that system from the inside out, and so his whole philosophy is the more that you really train your soma to have those experiences, the more division, the more the borders of your body begin to disappear, and you just are more able to live from those spaces. So,
yeah, yeah. And it requires awareness.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It's not so easy to walk through the world
yeah,
with the borders like this
right,
because there is light and there is dark.
right,
And we have to walk with that awareness and as we move through our everyday lives.
right.
So two questions that immediately come to mind in relation to what you just said was you, I'm not sure if I'm going to get the exact phrasing, but invitation to receptivity or the invitation to you said something along the lines of doing what makes you receptive to those spaces where you experience this integration or this connection.
Right, right.
So I am hoping that you will give us examples of what you do that helps you oh, encourage that receptivity within yourself. And
Yeah,
then,
so for me, certain meditation practices are for sure the foundation of that, but a lot
yeah,
of the meditation practices that I do are they're body-based practices, because so much of the time our body is um, it's just, when it can be in spaces where it's harder to let that receptivity in. And so a
yeah,
lot of the practices that I do are somatic based practices where we'll really go use certain parts of the body, that if you can really begin to relax those parts of the body, then it helps the resistance calm down. And so it just kind of helps us physiologically get into a deeper space. So then
mhm,
the receptivity of just kind of then inviting in whatever kind of sacred experience. I'm really big on the idea of experience, not just a thought, but really I
yeah.
kind of invite in that spirit experience of the sacred. But like I said, there's things that we can do physically that are going to make us more open to that.
What can we do physically to make us more open to that?
Well, there's just certain, and this is where my like the neuroscience stuff comes in.
Yeah.
There's certain nervous system. We have there's certain things that we can do with our nervous system and our physicality that will just automatically calm our body down. You know, the just the all the muscles around the eyes, our facial muscles, a gentle smile, all of those stuff, all of those um, physiological postures are connected to the deepest part of our brain and our emotional system that just helps it just calm down. And with the calming, then we can be receptive to a new experience. And I don't, because then I wish when I teach this, I'll like show an iceberg, right? And when we talk about the science, it's not like it's just like the tip of the iceberg. We can explain it through the science, but that's not, what's going on is just such a much, much, much larger spiritual word, experience, present capacity. But
Yeah.
we know through the science that there are things that we can do to be able to then like calm our systems, where we really can then inhabit a different kind of experience.
Mhm.
So,
So, for example, I think one of the things that I remember you saying, along with the relaxing around the eyes and relaxing the face and the gentle smile, Another example I believe you provided is simply to lengthen the exhale longer than the
Right,
inhale, right?
right,
These are the kinds of things that you're referring to. Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right. So there's just really simple things that we can do physiologically, but it's like, it's like opening the door and
Mm,
being able to kind of, or widen the door so we can allow that spiritual experience
yeah,
to be a deeper experience for us.
yeah. I have a question around so a lot of folks, and I'm one of these, have a lot of trouble with somatic practices because they, um, well, I'll just speak for myself, rather, but I know I'm not alone in this, but I will speak for myself. Like when it comes to healing modality, somatic practices, somatic practitioners, like I feel like I'm the problem child, so to speak, because if the body point is the entry, I'm like, I'm I old patterns from of constriction and spat. I did a practice with the other day, and the person started it, leading it through the body. And so for the entire practice, I was dealing with spasms because that's my body has an old trauma response pattern that is still there despite a lot a lot of work. And if I'm doing for example, internal family systems therapy work, and it's like looking at a part. If I am going to do that, I it's automatically that my system goes into constriction. My system says not no, but heck no, we are not going there.
Yeah, no,
And
I totally get that.
and so for me, like the what I have found healing is focusing on my connection, which for me is the connection to Allah, and opening to receive us that sense of basically intimacy with the divine and love from the divine and light from the divine and the mercy and the compassion and the peace that comes from the divine. So for me, my entry point is I have to have a sense of connecting to the divine and then somehow bring that sense of um, strength, alignment, light, whatever descriptors you want to use, and invite this to hold this other pattern or this other um, trauma residual or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, so my question is, do you have any specific suggestions for people who are similarly triggered by body practices? Because there are a lot of folks that really their entry point is the body. But there
Right,
but there are other folks whose entry point is absolutely not the body.
right,
And if you start in that way, then it just makes it so much more difficult. So I was just
right.
wondering if you have any suggestions around.
Yeah, so trauma gets wired in our body.
Mhm.
Trauma gets wired in our body because we weren't able to have the completion of the traumatic experience, meaning that not that the experience didn't complete, but our nervous system didn't have a chance to be able to get back to regulation, right? So our
Mhm.
nervous system gets challenged. This happens all every day. Our nervous system gets challenged, we get back to calm. Nervous system, when we have trauma, especially bigger traumas in our life, it gets wired in our nervous system. Your nervous system is trying to protect itself. And
Yeah.
so, for a lot of people, somatic work is really, um, I don't know what word I want to use here. It is a hard entry point.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I think it's still really an important avenue to explore
Hmm.
because it is still trapped in your nervous system, but you need to do it a at a level that isn't, because what happens is if it's too scary, if it feels too invasive, it's just you're just going to get blocked again, right? It's too much.
Yeah.
And so one of the trainings I went through is through somatic experiencing, and they're really big on that. It's just you just go a little bit at a time. You go a little bit at a time, right? Because if you overstep those bounds, your body's going to resist, and then you're just getting the resistance recalibrated in your system. So
Yeah.
even with some modalities like IFS or something like that, it still can feel too much, right? So
Yeah.
it's just, one of the things that somatic experiencing really does is inch, come back, reground yourself. If something feels uncomfortable, come back and reground yourself. So they're always working between inching the way into being able to, heal the body or use the body as an entry point, or however you want to term that, but always coming back and regrounding, always coming back and regrounding. What and whether it's looking at something externally that really grounds you and calms you, or coming back to a memory that really grounds you and calms you, but it's all done in relationship to the nervous system. Right.
Mhm.
So we're just paying attention to the nervous system. Does that feel too much? Okay, we're going to back up a little bit. It's because I think some somatic practices, yeah, we're going to go in through the body and we're going to do this strong. Some people's nervous systems aren't, I don't want to say aren't designed for that, but have past experiences that aren't going to be open to that. And it doesn't mean you never will. It just means you got to go really slow. You got to go really, really, really slow. And to be able to, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to repattern your nervous system so then it can be more available, right?
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
you do it where it's resisting, that's not going to work. So it's this constant, just kind of, we're going to inch and then we're going to come back and ground you. We're going to inch, we're going to come back and ground you, which I really appreciate the way, especially somatic experiencing does that, because their whole program is based on you just go slow. You go slow, you pull back, you ground, all this kind of stuff, because we really are working specifically with your nervous system. So let's just come back. How does that feel? How does that land? So it's not expecting somebody to go there into these somatic practices that doesn't feel comfortable. But it's
Hmm.
also not saying, okay, well, these aren't for you. It's just like you're always checking in. How does that land with you? Does that feel constricting? Okay, so let's back up and let's do something else. And you know what I mean? It's constantly being aware of that and being aware of how your nervous system is reacting, and honoring that, right?
Hmm.
Honoring, most of the time we don't get that, right? We don't
Yeah.
honor the constriction. We just say, okay, that's not going to work for you, or let's try something else, or there's something wrong with you because you can't do it this way. And that's not, we want to honor what's going on with your nervous system, and at the same time do what we can to begin to be able to heal it. But meeting it where it is the very first step. And I think that's one of the things that I've really most recently really been focused and aware of, because just recently I've thrown myself into all these trainings around trauma, but somatic approaches to trauma. And that's the very first piece, is we gotta meet somebody's body and nervous system where it is,
Yeah.
not make it wrong, not make anything, and let's just really honor that. And let's
Yeah.
find something a little bit that feels good. And then if
Yeah.
it feels too much, and it's not from a brain space. It's not from tell me, right? It's just what's going on in your body right now. And like we've said, well, I get really constricted. Okay, totally understand it. I get that. Let's just back up and let's try to, you know what I mean? So it's just always this inching in of being able to kind of slowly inch in and then slowly be able to resolve just tiny bits at a time, you know, that kind of resolution of that trauma in your nervous, because that's where it is, right? The event's over. Where it is wired in your nervous system. But to say that that's wrong when it's responding that way isn't, you know, that's not helpful. It's not the truth. It's just like, you know, what are the small steps that we can take to be able to inch our way in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not easy. I have made progress and I've got a ways to go.
Yeah.
And what I have found is that it's almost a matter of, again, I'm going to say, as a Muslim Sufi, for me, I'm going to use the name Allah, the divine name Allah. It's almost as if my focus is not on Allah, then there's some level where my body starts shutting down,
Right.
And so anytime when I've done somatic experiencing work and I'm being asked to look at what's going on in my body, it's like my body's like, yeah, no, mm-mm.
Yeah. And honor that. You know what I mean? I'm just I'm all for honoring that. You don't need to go, you know what I mean? So let's take a couple deep breaths and focus on Allah and then and see, does that calm
Yeah,
yourself down?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Because it
It's
sounds like it does, right? So then let's just do a little bit, you know what I mean? It's like it's really yeah,
I have experienced this in terms of in many different manifestations, but in terms of health challenges, in terms of chronic pain, um, it's my what buoys me and sustains me is my connection to God.
right,
And I couldn't get through it otherwise.
right.
Yeah. So, and and there has been a tremendous amount of movement. I've come a very long ways, and I still got some stuff going on in my nervous system.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And if I was working with somebody and that was their experience, first and foremost, I'd say, okay, so we're not going to go in through the body. We're going to go through that experience, your experience of Allah. And then let's just inch, you know, how does that feel now? Does that feel okay? Does that, you know what I mean? It's just, you got to meet somebody's nervous system where it is and not push. It's not like I'm going to meet you where you are and then push. No, it's like, you know, we're just going to, you know, hold your hand and have a law lead, right? We're just going to, yeah, it's just a whole different process because that's trauma. Your nervous system is trying to protect you.
Yeah.
And um and that's a beautiful thing.
If we talk about any more, I'm gonna get really emotional. So, because my emotions are starting to come up a lot. So, because of course my awareness of as we're having this conversation, my own awareness, how can I not be more aware of what's going on in my body at the moment? So, in the
Right.
moment, I got a lot going on in my body,
Right. And
and
and so
the emotions are
what I
coming.
would say is, you know, if it feels flooding, let's do something to ground you right now.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what I was going to suggest was this is a perfect opportunity for you to lead us in a practice.
I mean, because you know, there's like, yeah, we don't there's tearing up to release, which is always a good thing, but then there's also tearing up because there's just too much. And so to be able to kind of really discern that, and then if it's too much, just pull you back, get you grounded, get you in that space where you're really in that experiential space of Allah or whatever other divine sacred source kind
Yeah.
of um, makes themselves available to you.
Well,
Yeah.
let's step back from me as an example.
Okay. Sorry. You started it.
I know I totally did. And I accept responsibility for that. And I want this episode to be something that the widest number of listeners can get something out of. So,
Okay.
with that said, um, would you be willing to lead us in a little something to help us integrate our emotional, physical, spiritual experience and
Sure. How many minutes we got? What time were we talking about?
I have no idea. Oh, let's just
Whatever feels comfortable, because I can do it from 2 minutes to 20 minutes, 25 minutes. It's
how
just
about somewhere in between? Let maybe say in the 5 to 10 minute range.
okay. That works.
Okay, great.
Okay, so I hope nobody's listening to this while they're driving. So just to just to start, just make sure that you are in a really just notice where your body wants to be right now. Just notice, kind of where your comfort would be most facilitated. If you need to move, you don't, just then just take a few really releasing breaths. And on the out breath, just physically feel the sensation of release. So you're releasing the tension and stress through your whole body as you let the air out. Uh, if it works, add in an audible sigh, or you're just letting the air go out. You can add in a little bit of vocalization, that'll help too, but you don't need to if that doesn't feel comfortable. Oh, so just physically feel the sensation of release. Just physically feel the sensation of release. If it feels comfortable, slow down the out breath just a little bit longer than the in breath. So you don't want to control the breath too much. It's a very comfortable, very natural breath. But if it feels comfortable, just slow down the out breath just a little bit longer. And as you do so, just feel yourself getting a little heavier on whatever surface is supporting you. And trusting that surface to support you. So you're letting go of the tension and stress through your body. And as you are relying less on your tension and stress to keep you upright, you can just feel yourself melting into that surface beneath you. And then just let your awareness and your breath meet at a focal point that feels comfortable for you somewhere in your torso. And immerse yourself in the experience of breathing. Uh, and then keep some of your awareness on that breathing pattern, but now bring your awareness to your eyes and release all the tiny little muscles, all the tension around your eyes. And as you do so, just feel the sensation of release through your body. And then release all the tiny little muscles all through your face. as if you're losing your expression on your face. And just feel the sensation of release through your body. And then release any tightness or tension through your shoulders. Again, physically feeling the sensation of release. And then keep your awareness somewhere in the background on that breathing pattern. But we're also going to bring some awareness to your toes and just release the tightness or tension all around your toes, especially where your toes meet your feet. Carry a lot of stress and tension there, and we don't even realize it. And then release. Through the rest of your foot. Imagine as if you're breathing in and out of every pore on your skin. Now from your ankles to your toes. And then release all the tension all through your lower leg. And again, add in as if you're breathing in and out of every pore. Now from your knees to your toes. And now bring your awareness to your upper leg. So your thigh, the front of the thigh, back of the thigh. And just release any kind of tension or stress all through the muscles there. And then adding in as if you were breathing in and out of every pore of your skin, now all the way from your hips to your toes. Now adding in your torso. So all the muscles on the outside, all your internal organs, just bring in awareness and then release. Physically feeling the sensation of release. And now from your shoulders down to your fingertips simultaneously down each arm. Just physically feel the sensation of release. And now adding in from your shoulders to your toes as if you're breathing in and out of every pore on your skin. Now imagine a wave of relaxation coming up the back of your neck and releasing through all the muscles in the back of the neck. And then like a cap beginning to unfold and encircle around the top of your head, around the side of your head, and you can feel yourself just letting go of the tension and stress that you typically carry there. And just feel it releasing on every out breath. And now, as if a curtain is coming down, curtain of relaxation down through your forehead and through the sockets of your eyes and down again through your face and around your jaw and down into your throat Again, down into your heart and just release and breathe. And now, if it feels comfortable to do so, bring in a divine or sacred presence. And really feel the connection or experience. Just bring in the experience of what the connection with that divine figure feels like. And deeply feel that connection. If the presence presents as a face for you, just imagine that face gazing at you. And imagine their eyes expressing love and compassion for you. Imagine a gentle smile. Imagine their voice. And if it feels comfortable for you to do so, cultivate a tiny little smile. Just physically feel the sensation of release on the out breath, but also as if you're trying to soak up the experience in every cell of your body on the in breath. And as you soak up the connection or the experience of connection with this presence, feel like it's being absorbed in every cell of your body. As if you're trying to make a cellular memory or cement the experience in every cell of your body. Now, without coming out of the practice, just bring a little awareness to yourself in the practice. In other words, now it's almost as if you're observing yourself deep in the state of presence. Notice if any intuitive insights come up, or notice any sensations, knowings. May not be in words. And then just a little more awareness to your experience. Again, noticing if any insights or any knowings. And then just bring a little more awareness to how you're feeling. If there's anything that came up for you that you really want to take from the practice, just take note of it. And then bring a little more awareness. Feel your fingers and your toes, and reground yourself in your space. Move your arms and your legs. Another deep breath, and then if it and when it feels comfortable, bringing your awareness back to the space that you're in and fully back inhabiting your body.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So I thought, well, I do want my um, offerings in each episode to be of greatest benefit possible. And there are, and so of course, I wanted you to lead a practice in a general way that wasn't specific to me. And then I thought, well, people could benefit from my experience as well. So,
Oh, absolutely. And, if I was working with you individually, I would probably just see how it feels and I might do it in the opposite. I might really get into that space of inviting in, um, divine presence for you first so it feels like a comfortable space.
uh,
Um, but I think that would really kind of depend on what I was picking up from your physiology.
yeah, yeah. It's so great that you said that, that if you were working with me, that you would probably start with inviting the divine presence first. And I realized while we were doing the practice, oh, what I do is I start with just a few breaths, and setting the intention to ground the body and settle the mind through grounding the body. And then I go to the heart right away and bringing in remembrance of the divine or the sacred to the heart space very quickly is how I tend to lead practices. And what I noticed was with staying with awareness of the breath really brings you into the body. And so then my system automatically goes, this is too much. And I like my awareness of all the places of pain starts ratcheting up. I start having involuntary twitching that I can't control, and it just keeps going. It keeps going and keeps going through the entire practice. So what I experimented with was bringing together, there's a practice that I do called remembrance of the breath. And that's bringing together one of the sayings in my tradition, which is La ilaha illallah, there is no God but God. And so on the exhale, it's La ilaha, there is no God, little g. And on the inhale, it's like saying only the divine, only God, capital G, only the love, only the light, only goodness. So it's the inhale of excuse me, it's the exhale of the otherness and the inhale of the divine light, the divine love. Um, and so what I started doing while you were leading that practice was bringing my uh, remembrance of the breath together with the breath in the practice and trying to work with the involuntary twitching. It starts when I bring my focus. If I just start to try bring my awareness to my breath and even try to exhale, so that is an inviting a deeper breath, and the twitching starts. And so then what I was doing was pushing um, the experience of, for me, that twitching comes from my right leg, a pattern of trying to pull that right leg up in front of me to be between me
Right.
and to push away. And so I practiced pairing that, okay, what I'm going to do when I'm on the inhale, only God. On the inhale, I'm just going to allow. So the twitching, I just allow the twitching, I allow the pain, I just allow everything and not try and do. And then on the exhale, I was experimenting with, okay, leg make that movement of pushing. And so I just went back and forth between the exhale, letting my leg make that movement of pushing. On the inhale, only God, only Allah, only the divine love, and just allowing just allowing.
Right.
So that's what how I worked with it in the practice. If
Yeah,
that
it's so interesting because, how I would work with somebody individually is very different than how I would work with a group. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
but I would also, because some people, people always ask me, why do you start with the feet and go up rather than start with the head and go down? Some people, because they're afraid to get, you're really comfortable with the sacred space, um, and being in that heart space, but not so much with the body space. There's
right.
other people that are the opposite, right? That you tell them to go into their heart, and it's this big, you know. So
Like, no way, that's too much pain there. There's too much
yeah,
emotion there. There's too
yeah.
much. I know, I
And
know.
that's why I always start with the feet,
Yeah,
because if you start with the head and go down, it gets too close to, so I want people to really get into that, to the relaxed space. So by the time we get up to the heart and by the time we get up to the torso, people are more relaxed and open.
yeah,
So it's just interesting because everybody's system is different. I would also, if again, the individual thing, I would encourage, to experience the twitching and bring, if your leg wants to come up, bring up your leg.
yeah,
Somehow that got thwarted, right? That's
yeah,
what your system wants to do to complete that movement,
yeah,
and I would actually encourage that.
yeah,
Not to re-traumatize, but then restabilize you, and you know what I mean. It's not, there's
yeah,
that fine line of being able to do what your body wants to do, but then letting it know it's okay. It's in the here and now. It's okay. We're just going to reground you, and we're going to let that movement work through, but then we're going to ground you back. So it's, yeah. So it's just interesting. It's just, yeah,
yeah.
all the different ways that it can be, different practices can be used. Yeah.
So my takeaway from that is that we need to really listen to ourselves and honor ourselves. And if our entry point and our comfort zone is the heart, great, listen and honor that. If our entry zone and comfort zone is the body, great, listen and honor that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just honor your experience. And a part of the experience is that there's a certain level of trust.
Right.
Yeah. And for me, that trust comes from my connection to the divine.
Right. And part of trust is safety.
Right.
And part of what creates, there are some real physiological things that creates feelings of safety. One of
Mhm.
them, eyes, sound, verbalization, all of this stuff, here, I think as you've heard me talk, is associated with the vagal nerve that really creates feelings of safety. So when
Yeah.
I had you experience the divine, that was my purpose. Imagine the smile, imagine the eyes, imagine them saying something to you, right? Because that's the safety system. So when I was going back to, if I were working with you individually, I would start with the safety system. I would
Yeah.
absolutely start with that safety system. So it's not just your experience of the divine that gets you that feeling of trust, but also really intentionally engaging the physiological system of safety. If that
Yeah.
makes any
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
I think that's probably why the elongation of the name, that chanting practice that I did before we started recording, why I find that so valuable because there's a vibrational energy that comes into the heart and the body, and it changes the breath. Like when you're doing that chanting practice, you're automatically, I believe, probably exhaling longer than you're inhaling. So that chanting practice brings in the an integration of body. It brings in an integration of the safety that the safety system that you're talking about, because it slows things down, because
Right,
it does bring a certain thing that's happening with this part of the body.
right. And you're also bringing in the safety system. Part of the safety system is sound. Part of the safety system
Yeah,
is vocalization.
yeah,
So, I mean, which is amazing. Here it is, our neuroscience again validating what our spiritual traditions have known forever, right?
yeah,
So I was thinking when you were doing that chanting, that absolutely engages, we call the social engagement system, but that absolutely engages that system of safety.
yeah, yeah,
So in those chants that you do, you are engaging. It is the breath, and you're also engaging the physiological system of safety for you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So just so everyone knows, not just not just you and me. So the chanting I was doing at the beginning is called elongation of the name, and it's the same phrase that I do with what I call the remembrance of the breath, La ilaha illallah, which means there is no God, little g, but God, capital G. And it's saying that there's one divine, so that you may refer to the divine with a different name, but there is one ultimate reality is is the meaning of this sentence. And then beyond the more esoteric meaning is really that there is only one, that that multiplicity serves the purpose of bringing us to unity. But then in truth, in reality, capital R, reality, there is only one. So so that's what I was doing. And just to give you a sense of what that's like, it's La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah.
I could just feel that vibrating through my body.
It totally shifts how I feel in heart and body. Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Any final words of wisdom? Any takeaways you want to be
It's
with?
just always a treat to be in your presence.
Likewise, likewise, likewise. Well, thank you to all listeners for joining us on Beyond Names. Before we go, briefly, if you would please take one short breath to pause, or a long breath, maybe a long one, to reflect for a moment on anything that stays with you from this conversation. My takeaway is to bring together listening to the heart and listening to the body. May something you heard today help you reconnect with the light in your own heart. May you grow in compassion, clarity, and courage. May you find your way again and again back home to the divine, back home to the sacred, however you name it. If today's conversation spoke to you, please like, share, and comment on this episode. And please follow Beyond Names. To make an appointment with me, please visit habibboerger.com. Until next time, may you be light, may you consciously participate in growing your light, and may you share your light. Peace be with you.